Before the interstates filled every exit with the same bright signs and identical meals, there were stretches of highway that felt almost forgotten. Miles of darkness. No traffic. No noise. Just a pair of headlights cutting through the night, and a driver trying to stay awake. Out there, food wasn't about choice. It was about making it to the next mile. And then, somewhere in the distance, a glow. A truck stop. Not polished. Not perfect. But inside, something real was waiting. Hot plates that had been cooking all day. Coffee that never stopped pouring. Meals so heavy, so filling, drivers planned their entire route around them. One dish on this list was ordered so often, the cook started making it before the truck even parked. Another was so cheap, it kept drivers going when money was running out. And one was the closest thing to home a man could find at 2 in the morning, hundreds of miles away from it. These weren't just dinners. They were routine. They were comfort. They were survival on an empty road. So before these meals disappeared behind chain restaurants and smaller portions, let's go back. Because these are the 10 forgotten truck stop meals that once kept America moving. Chicken fried steak with white gravy. The plate hit the counter heavy, the kind of weight you could feel through the wood. Chicken fried steak wasn't made to impress anyone. It was made to hold you together. Cube steak, tough, cheap, unforgiving, pounded thin until it finally gave in. Dragged through seasoned flour, dipped in egg, then coated again, like armor. Dropped into a cast iron skillet where the oil snapped loud enough to cut through the silence of the room. By the time it came out, the crust wasn't just crisp, it shattered. Golden, uneven, real. Then came the gravy. Not poured from a packet, but built right there in the same pan. Drippings, flour, whole milk, and more black pepper than most people could handle. Thick enough to cover everything. Strong enough to wake you up. In 1968, a plate like this cost less than $1. But for a driver 10 hours deep into the night, it was worth more than that. Because this wasn't just food. It slowed everything down. The road. The noise. The fatigue. For a few minutes, you weren't chasing miles anymore. You were sitting still, with something hot in front of you that didn't come from a wrapper. And out there, that mattered more than anyone talks about today. Ham steak with red-eye gravy. It usually came out just after midnight, when the room went quiet and the road started to feel longer than it should. A thick slice of country ham, salt-cured, dense, edged with fat, dropped onto a dry skillet already hot from the last order. No oil needed. The fat rendered on its own, hissing as it hit the metal, filling the air with something sharp and smoky. The cook didn't rush it. Both sides seared hard until the edges darkened and tightened, until the smell reached the far end of the counter. Then came the part most people never forget. A splash of black coffee, poured straight into the same pan. It cracked and steamed instantly, lifting everything stuck to the bottom. The drippings, the salt, the heat, pulled together into a thin, dark gravy that didn't look like much, but carried all the flavor. Poured right over the ham. No garnish. No extras. In the mid-1960s, a plate like this cost barely over 50 cents. Cheap enough to order without thinking. Strong enough to keep you going when your eyes didn't want to stay open. Drivers used to say it was the only time coffee felt like a meal. Not because it filled you up, but because it woke something back up inside you. And on a road that never seemed to end, that was sometimes the only thing that mattered. Liver and onions. It was never the first thing anyone wanted, but somehow it kept getting ordered. Not because it sounded good, but because someone, somewhere, once said it helped you stay sharp. A thick slice of calf's liver, pale and delicate before it hit the heat. Dredged lightly in flour. No heavy coating. No hiding it. Dropped onto a flat top already running too hot, because time mattered more than comfort. It had to be quick. Too long and it turned tough. Too little and no one would trust it. So the cook watched it closely, flipped it once, maybe twice, and pulled it at exactly the right second. Onions were already going in the background. Sliced thin. cooked low in butter until they softened, then slowly turned golden, sweet, almost melting into themselves. They didn't just sit on top. They covered the liver completely, like they were trying to soften what it really was. In the mid-1960s, it cost under 60 cents. Reliable. Older drivers ordered it without hesitation. They didn't look at the menu. They didn't need to. They believed in it. Maybe it was the iron. Maybe it was routine. Or maybe it was just something they held on to when everything else on the road kept changing. Younger drivers avoided it when they could. But out there, after enough miles, enough nights, enough silence, even the meals you didn't like started to make sense. Hot beef sandwich with brown gravy. It didn't arrive neatly. It arrived covered. A hot beef sandwich at a truck stop wasn't something you picked up. It was something you sat down for. 2 slices of plain white bread laid flat on a plate. Not toasted, not dressed, just waiting. Then came the beef. Thin slices, cut from a roast that had been cooking since morning. Still warm. Still holding on to that slow, deep flavor. And then the gravy. Not a drizzle. Not a spoonful. It was poured until everything disappeared. Bread, meat, gone under a thick brown layer that spread across the plate and settled into every corner. Mashed potatoes pushed up against the side, catching whatever ran over. Another slice of bread placed nearby, because you were going to need it. By 1967, this whole plate cost about 65 cents. Affordable enough for anyone on the road. Filling enough that you didn't think about food again for hours. But the reason it lasted wasn't the price. It was the feeling. Because once that gravy soaked in, once the bread softened and everything blended together, it stopped being separate things. It became one meal. One moment. And for a driver who had been alone behind the wheel all day, this was the closest thing to sitting down at a real table. No rush. No noise. No movement. Just a plate in front of you. And, for a little while, the road finally gone. Pork chops with applesauce. It usually showed up right around evening, when the light outside started fading and the road ahead turned darker than it should. 2 thick pork chops, bone-in, sitting side by side on a plate that felt too small to hold them. Seasoned simply, salt, pepper, nothing more. Dropped onto a hot surface where the fat began to render slowly, edges crisping, curling just slightly as they cooked. No shortcuts. They were seared hard first, then finished gently, until the meat pulled clean from the bone without resistance. The smell filled the room before the plate ever reached the counter. Rich, steady, familiar. And then, the applesauce. A small portion, off to the side. Soft, slightly sweet, made earlier that morning from whatever apples came in that week. It didn't look important, but it changed everything. One bite of the pork, salty, hot, heavy, followed by that cool sweetness. It balanced something you didn't realize was off. By 1964, this entire plate cost about 75 cents. Not the cheapest on the menu, but one of the most dependable. In parts of the Midwest, it showed up the same day every week. Drivers knew that. They timed their routes around it without saying why. Because meals like this weren't just about hunger. They were about rhythm. Something steady in a life that wasn't. And when you found that kind of consistency out on the road, you held on to it. Beef stew with cornbread. It started in the morning, long before anyone was hungry. A heavy pot placed on the stove, lid down, heat low. Nothing rushed. Nothing adjusted. Just time doing the work. First came the beef, seared in batches until the edges browned deep and dark. Then carrots, potatoes, onions, dropped in without ceremony. A can of tomatoes followed, and water that slowly turned into something thicker, heavier, more honest. By midday, the smell had already changed the room. Not sharp, not loud, just steady, like it had always been there. The stew didn't boil fast. It didn't need to. It simmered for hours, breaking things down gently until the broth turned rich and almost velvety, clinging to the spoon when it lifted. Next to it, cornbread. Baked in a cast iron skillet, edges crisp dark, center soft enough to fall apart when touched. Served warm, right beside the bowl, meant to be torn, not sliced. In the mid-1960s, this plate cost around 55 cents. Cheap enough to order without thinking twice. Filling enough that you didn't need anything else for the rest of the night. But what made it unforgettable wasn't the ingredients. It was the timing. If you arrived early, it was perfect. If you arrived too late, it was gone. No second batch. No replacement. Just a sign at the counter that said it simply. Stew's out. And out there on the highway, some of the best things didn't wait for you. Biscuits and sausage gravy. It didn't matter what time you walked in. At a truck stop, morning wasn't a clock, it was a feeling. And this was the meal that defined it. Fresh biscuits came out first, handmade that morning, still warm, split right down the middle with a fork. No perfection in the cut. Just honesty. Then the sausage, crumbled and browned in its own fat until the edges turned crisp and dark. The kind of smell that filled the entire room before the plate even left the kitchen. Flour went into the pan, stirred into what was left behind. Milk followed slowly, turning everything thick, white, speckled, heavy. Gravy built from nothing but heat and time. And then it all came together. Poured over the biscuits until nothing stayed dry. In 1963, this plate cost around 35 cents. Cheap enough to order without hesitation. Heavy enough to change your entire morning. Truckers called it a gut bomb, not as an insult, but as respect. Because it didn't try to be light. It didn't try to be clean. It just did its job. You ate it when the night had been too long. When the miles had been too quiet. When your body needed something that would actually stay with you. And by the time the plate was empty, you weren't thinking about food anymore. You were ready to move again. Meatloaf plate. It never looked impressive when it came out. Meatloaf wasn't meant to. It arrived in a thick slice, dark on the outside, soft in the center, cut from a larger loaf that had been baking since early morning. Ground beef mixed with breadcrumbs soaked in milk, onion, egg, a splash of Worcestershire, pressed together and left to hold its shape through heat and time. On top, a thin layer of ketchup glaze. Baked until it turned slightly sticky, almost caramelized at the edges. It was simple food. But it was honest food. Beside it, mashed potatoes, smooth and heavy. Green beans from a can, softened until they almost gave up their shape. By 1967, the plate cost around 59 cents. But what you were really paying for wasn't the ingredients. It was the consistency. Every truck stop had its own version. Every cook swore hers was better. But somehow, it always tasted like the same idea, something made earlier in the day, waiting for you when you finally stopped. And here's what drivers noticed but never said out loud. Meatloaf was better the day after. On Wednesday, it was sharper. Deeper. Like the flavors had stopped arguing and finally agreed on what they were supposed to be. So some drivers didn't order it on Monday. They waited. They planned their route around it. Because out there on the road, even the smallest certainty mattered. And meatloaf, simple, quiet, steady, was one of the few things that never changed its mind. Fried catfish with hush puppies. Near the rivers and low highways of the South, Friday nights had a sound of their own. Not from music, but from oil hitting heat. Fried catfish wasn't served, it was earned. Fillets came out of a buttermilk soak, pale and soft, waiting for fire. Then they were dragged through cornmeal seasoned with salt, pepper, and whatever the cook trusted that day. Dropped into hot oil, and the kitchen changed instantly. The sound was sharp at first, then steady, then almost calming, until the crust formed, golden, rough, loud when bitten into. Beside it, hush puppies. Small rounds of cornmeal batter, scooped and dropped into the same oil, puffing up as they fried. Crisp outside. Soft inside. Nothing fancy, just filling the space on the plate. A wedge of lemon. A bottle of hot sauce on the table. Nothing else needed. By 1965, catfish plates cost under 50 cents in many roadside stops. cheap enough that it became a ritual more than a choice. Drivers didn't just order it because they were hungry. They ordered it because it meant something. Friday night on the road wasn't lonely if you could smell this coming from a kitchen. And when the plate finally arrived, steam rising, edges still crackling slightly, it didn't feel like a meal. It felt like a pause in the journey. Chicken and dumplings. This was the meal that didn't arrive quickly, because it was never meant to. It started hours earlier. A whole chicken simmering slowly in a large pot of broth, seasoned only with salt, pepper, and thyme. Nothing rushed. Nothing added for effect. Just heat doing its quiet work until the meat gave up and fell away from the bone. The bones came out. The meat went back in. And then came the dumplings. Soft spoonfuls of dough dropped straight into the broth, where they floated at first, then slowly expanded, absorbing everything around them. Steam rose thick from the pot, carrying the smell of something warm and steady. The lid stayed on most of the time, because some things needed to stay sealed in. By 1964, a bowl cost around 55 cents. But what made people order it wasn't the price. It was the memory. Drivers would sit down after days on the road and order this without looking at anything else. Not because they were sure it would taste like home, but because they hoped it might. And sometimes it did. Not in a perfect way. Not exactly like someone's kitchen from years ago, but close enough. The dumplings were the part that stayed with you, soft, heavy, almost dissolving into the broth if you waited too long. You had to eat it at the right moment. Not too early. Not too late. And for a few quiet minutes at a truck stop counter. The road outside didn't feel so far away. Somewhere along the way, these meals didn't disappear all at once. They faded slowly. A new chain would open across the highway. Menus got shorter. Kitchens got smaller. The cook who knew every driver by name eventually stopped showing up. And what replaced it wasn't bad food. It was just the same. Same breakfast in every state. Same sandwich wrapped in paper. Same coffee that never really changed no matter where you were. But what was lost wasn't just flavor. It was the waiting. The timing. The feeling that someone back there was cooking for you, not for a system. These truck stop meals weren't designed to be remembered. They were designed to keep people moving. And yet, here we are. Still talking about them. Still trying to taste something that isn't coming back. If you've ever stopped at a place like this, or if you know an exit number that still lives in your memory, drop it in the comments. And if stories like this speak to you, subscribe. Because out there on the old highways, there are still more forgotten things waiting to be told.